That one, year number 4. It's a Yank on the Footy with Craig Wessels. Let's all sit back and enjoy a chat about the greatest game on the face of the earth. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 271 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels, coming from Sandusky, Ohio. I am thrilled that you're listening. In this episode, I'm going to be sitting down in just a moment to chat with one of the more unique Port Adelaide supporters from a part of the planet where footy is something completely different, but he absolutely loves both types of footy, both football, as most of the world refers to it, as well as Australian rules football. I'm going to be joined by Paulo Sanchotene, who lives on the Brazilian Argentinian border, right on the Uruguay River. He is a mad Port Adelaide supporter. Just a really wonderful conversation, and I do hope you enjoy this one. Now, folks, don't forget that if you are interested in getting your local footy club getting a shout-out during an upcoming episode, be sure to reach out to my socials. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can reach me at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can leave me a note over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. Love being able to highlight the clubs. In fact, this week's club of the episode are the Flinders Park Reds of the Adelaide Football League. And the Reds were established way back in 1927, and they currently have a senior men's club playing in Division 3, the Division 3 reserves, senior women's football in Division 4. They've got junior football at the Sanford Juniors from 8 to under 17 and a half, as well as, two girls teams at under 15 and under 17 and a half. This week, in fact, yesterday, as a matter of fact, they, along with the help of Chad Corns, held a Tackle Your Feelings workshop, which was designed to help participants with strategies to tackle conversations about their mental health. And if you're a listener, you'll know that in every episode and in every set of show notes, I always have those numbers that if you need to call and talk to someone about an issue, please do that. Don't try to handle those issues on your own. I'm talking through some things with my wife right now with my summer job, which I'm enjoying doing. I think I mentioned to a few folks that I'm working at the local amusement park, and last week I managed to walk right around 66 kilometers during the course of my work week. But I'm trying to figure out how do I fit my summer job in with the podcast, along with the commitments that I have to my teaching job, which some of those do carry over into the summertime as being one of the advisors of our National Honor Society. So I have a lot of things that I need to be doing along with that. Not to mention, I have this whole thing of turning 60 next week. So I've got that digit of my age rolling over. And I'm actually looking forward to turning 60 because my grandfather passed away at age 69. My father passed away at 59. He was an alcoholic. He smoked incessantly. I don't do either one of those things. I'm now down almost 67 kilograms over the last almost 23 months now, 22 months. Got a very positive, favorable medical report from my doctor just yesterday, and went and rode two of the roller coasters where I work that I have never had the chance to ride before. One, because they hadn't been built when I could actually fit on them, and now I can fit on them, and I had one hell of a time. Lots and lots of fun with those. So, again, if you are a roller coaster enthusiast, Cedar Point should be on your bucket list. Now, back to the Reds real quickly here. This weekend, they are hosting their Gala Ball at the Adelaide Oval, which is really neat that they're getting to host it at that wonderful, wonderful stadium. They are going to be emceed by Wayne Flipper Phillips, Test cricketer, as well as having guest interviews with the Crows AFLW captain Chelsea Randall and Flinders Park's junior football star and current Brisbane Heat and SA Redbacks gun Spencer Johnson. Now, the tickets are $150 for that. Based upon their Facebook page, they may have already closed down ticket sales, but if you head over to their website, their Facebook page, which I'll have a link in the show notes, and if you're in the Adelaide area and you're thinking about going to this, I'll put the link there. You might still be able to get a ticket. It looks like it's going to be a grand time. Now, also on the 24th, the men's side will be hosting the Gaza Eagles at 2:15, while the women's senior side head to the Haslam Oval to face Pembroke. So I want to wish the Reds the absolute best of luck the rest of the way through 2023, and I hope that your gala is an absolute ripper. So let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Paulo Sanchotene. I think you're going to enjoy this. This was a fascinating discussion with, a gentleman who loves Port Adelaide, and as someone who is probably a longtime listener to the podcast, we do tend to go down slightly different avenues that are not always footy related. And I just think he's a fascinating individual. I do hope that you'll enjoy this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely thrilled to be welcoming my guest for this discussion. We are almost in the same time zone. We're in the same hemisphere, which does not happen very often on this podcast. I'm usually all the way on the other side of the world, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Paulo Sanchotene. I think I pronounced that correctly there. I got the correct pronunciation. Paulo, thanks for getting up and coming on this morning, sir. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for the invite. It's it's always good to chat about Australian football.
Yes, before we dive too far into this, why don't we tell the listeners where you are, because you are not exactly in a hotbed or a huge area for footy. So tell us where you are, sir.
Yeah, I'm not in a hotbed for footy at all. I'm in countryside Brazil, in the southernmost state, south of Rio Grande. I'm near the border. I'm at the border with Argentina and near the border with Uruguay. So it's a tri-country border. So in the city of Uruguaiana.
And you are right on the Uruguay River as well, if I was looking at the map correctly.
Yes, there. The name of the city, Uruguaiana, means off the Uruguay River, right? So that's
okay. So
it's the city of the Uruguay. That's what it means, right?
So go ahead.
It's the most important dry port between in Latin America and South America, right? It's and most trade between Brazil and Argentina passed through here, so we are the main gate from Argentina to Brazil.
Oh, for rail lines, for the railroad.
Most trucks. The rail.
Okay.
We are trying to get the rail back, but we haven't been able to get there. But we will. Argentina is not in a good economic moment right now, so the trade is difficult. Let's hope they get better, because then we gain.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. Things are not going great here in the United States either. So it's yes, it's. I think that could kind of be a global thing right there as well. But you're somebody who I started following. It's been a couple of years now on Twitter, and I will put the link to your Twitter feed on there. And I hope everybody, especially if you're a Port Adelaide supporter, and we'll get into that in a minute, that they give you a follow. But how did you come across discovering Australian rules football? Because people know that Brazil is first and foremost a soccer or football nation. How did footy come to you?
Well, it's an odd story with a bit chapters, because it jumps some years before completing, right? So it actually starts when I'm a kid. And there was this on TV, right around noon, there was this really weird sports show. Mm-hmm. It was called Gillette World of Sports. they would show highlights of odd sports, at least odd for from a Brazilian perspective, right?
Right, right.
So highlights of sports that weren't soccer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a few times they would show like players jumping on each other's backs, kicking a normal ball in a gigantic field with 4 goal posts on each other,
Right.
and the scores would have basketball scores, and what a crazy game that is, right?
Yes.
And and it was okay. It's and watching that, and so this is a football code that is from Australia, so it's Australian football. Really interesting, and that just stayed on the back of my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you jump ahead like 15 years, and my brother, which is way younger than me, he said, "Oh, I'm going to spend a vacation in Australia." There are a lot of friends of mine that are there as exchange students and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to visit them, and I said, "Oh, great, fantastic! But if you're going, right, can you bring me 2 souvenirs? I want the AFL game for PlayStation, and I
Okay.
want a Footy."
Okay.
And he went there, spent a couple of months, and he came. Although I didn't know, right? But he went to Sydney in the northeastern part, which is not. It's a rugby league. It's not Footy,
Right.
but he was able, even in Sydney, to get the gifts for me, right? And so, like, we get the ball and get the game and try to play the game, even not knowing the rules at all, right? Trying to find them on the fly. And I would always pick Port Adelaide because of the colors. I'm a Gremio fan, and the colors are really similar. Gremio is also black, white, and but Gremio is black and white and sky blue, not teal, but teal is close enough.
Very close. Very close.
And Port Adelaide and Porto Alegre, they have the same initials, so I found that really interesting.
That makes a lot of sense.
And if you get my profile on Twitter, right, the image is Gremio's old badge,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's G. A football PA, so it really could be a Port Adelaide badge.
Yes, it
right? And always pick Port Adelaide, and then again, we after a while we forgot everything about that, the game and the video game and stuff. Past now more 10 years, I went to the United States. I came back. I went to study in Washington, D.C. I went for a PhD in politics, which I didn't finish. I came back with an MA in politics.
Okay.
But my background is law, so if you people are curious about that. And I came back, and so we were okay. Let's get the stuff that was in a storage, right? And so we need to restart life here again. And among the stuff that were there, it was my Footy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got the Footy, and I looked at it and said, "How Port Adelaide is doing, right? It's been right a long time, right?" And I found Big Footy.
Okay.
I simply there is a bigsoccer.com website,
Mm-hmm.
and I simply tried, maybe there is a bigfooty.com, and there was, right. And I went to and I opened an account and went to the Port Adelaide forum there and start to make questions, and people adopted me.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it was really welcoming. And the Australians and Brazilians, they share the same kind of humor, right? And they don't take things seriously. They are always
Now,
the,
if may I
the-
pause you there, because there's a phrase that I think I remember from when I was there, and I'm hoping that but the phrase, if I'm not mistaken, was mais ou menos.
yes.
And
So
that,
so
yeah,
yes.
that's okay. That was okay. That's what I thought. I just remember that phrase from what yeah, and again, for those of you that don't, I was an exchange student in Brazil myself back in 1981 in Sao Paulo, and I learned all of the words that would get me slapped in the face when I was there. That's pretty much the Portuguese that I learned, and I'm not going to repeat those. But I learned a few of those words, but that was about the extent of what I did learn while I was there.
Uh, yeah, but maybe I may be exaggerating a bit because I was coming from my experience in the US, and certainly the Australians seem at least closer to us than the Americans, at least. So I had this. So I felt myself at home there, and not only they taught me about the game, but they taught me about port and stuff, and suddenly I simply couldn't leave there. So I started watching the games and listening, and when you start actually understanding how the game works, right? The game within the game, right? When it just not when it stops being just people kicking the ball around, and you see that there's strategy and tactics involved and stuff. It opens a whole new universe, right? So the game changes before your eyes, and so, and it's such a great game, right?
It is. So, what similarities do you see in footy and in soccer or football? Are there similarities that you see, or differences?
Plenty.
Okay.
I used to joke that it's Australian football would be like the offspring between soccer and basketball, but the kid outgrew his parents, right? I can see soccer and basketball a lot there, right? But in a humongous field, right?
Right.
So and people started to talk about this, and there were people that said, "Oh, you see, the game is actually evolving and changing, and because you have the soccer background, you have been able to understand more what is going on than us, because we are used how the game was for loads of time.
Right.
The coaches are trying to put things that they see in soccer, that they see in basketball, and to and to use it in Australian football." And I said, "Oh, so it wasn't like that," because to me it's obvious, right? Yeah, and that they're trying to do this, right? To use to move the ball with handballs using the triangle that in the NBA, right?
Right.
Phil Jackson, right? Introduced there. They are using this. How the wings are playing just like fullbacks in soccer, and it was okay. This makes a lot of sense to me, right? How they are trying to copy like total football that the Dutch did in 1974 in soccer, which is or really hard. But some tactics, like people say, "Oh, why they're chipping the ball around?" Right? Why this control of possession? And I said, "No, this is Barcelona, right? In the 2010s, right? This is you are trying. The whole point is, if you have the ball, the opposition cannot score on you, right?
That's true.
It's
That's
like
true.
it's like in American football when you start running and because you want the clock to keep running. Why? Because when you have the ball, the opposition cannot score on you.
Other team can't. Yep, exactly. So You said that you were in, and we'll get back to footy here in a second, but you told me a little bit of a story about when you were in the U.S. and we talked about the time I'd spent in Brazil and how people tend to be tourists in Brazil and how they tend to gravitate initially towards Rio de Janeiro. And you mentioned you told a really interesting story about Brazil and relationships a minute ago. So why don't you tell that story for the listeners, for people who are considering a visit to Brazil, which, again, the flora and fauna of Brazil is unlike anything else in the world. So,
Okay. Brazil is a humongous country, and I invite everybody to come here and visit. And with an open mind and trying to explore the most out of the country, right? Read about it because it's so rich that if you go to only one place, you may miss a lot of what happened. The story I told you about Rio de Janeiro is I said that because it's a mistake for tourists to come here and start in Rio. You shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't do that because people from Rio will try to persuade you to avoid going anywhere else. Because people from Rio believe that Brazil is a bunch of land around Rio de Janeiro and everything that matters and is interesting in the country is there. So if you visit Rio, it's done. No, start elsewhere. Go around Brazil. We have 27 states, right? We have like 7 different about the word in English by different kind of so we have the Amazon forest, we have the Cerrado, we have the Pampas. Pampas not only Argentina, there's the Brazilian Pampas where I'm from actually. So we have the mountains, we have the northeastern shores, we have a desert, we have everything. Right? And we have even snow in winter in some parts of the south, right? So we have everything. We have cities that look like Austrian cities, right? So don't start in Rio. But, and the other part that I told you that, book your trip to 2 weeks most, right? Why? Because after that, you're going to come here and you're going to fall in love to Brazil, right? It's such an amazing country that it's really easy to fall in love. But don't stay more than 2 weeks because you're gonna start to think that it's a great idea to stay, but don't. We are not. Brazil is like that. Anyone that went to college knew this girl, right? Absolutely gorgeous and charming and mad, right? Absolutely bonkers. So really great to spend time with, but not marriage material, right? That's Brazil. I can stay because I know her since I was a kid.
Right.
I know the moods and everything. I'm trained, so I can marry. Okay. Right. Yep. But I don't recommend if you are from a different country, a different culture, right? It's so you're going to know our worst, and that's not
right.
good, right?
Well, and what is one of a couple things that are really unique about Brazil is one. You have a forward capital city where the country was trying to encourage people to move inland, so they basically just created a new capital from nothing with Brasilia. But then you also have a massive city that is just in Manaus. It's just in the middle of the rainforest, kind of all by itself, with well over 1 million people. It's like rainforest, 1 million people. It's
yes.
I remember we've
when the city ends, the forest begins again. It's
Yes.
just that. So you have this huge metropolis
Yes.
surrounded by forest. Yes.
Yeah, it is. When I came there in 1981, we flew into Manaus initially from Miami. That's where we landed initially, before then going to Rio and then on to Sao Paulo. But I don't remember seeing much because it was at nighttime. But I know that they told us, and we looked at the map, that the city was surrounded by just forest.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing state. They don't have many roads and no railroads. The roads are the rivers, so they don't need to build because they use the boats for everything. So it's a really interesting state there.
Yeah. So, now that I want to go back and ask you one question here that's kind of a little off topic, but did you become an adept player of the video game on your PlayStation? Were you any good at it?
No, I'm awful.
Okay.
Well, video game and sports, I love them, but I'm not good at them. Right? It's like a platonic relationship that I love, but I don't get any love in return. But I keep insisting. But unfortunately, God didn't give me the gift to be good in those activities.
But you have a gift for other things, and since I only release audio on this, your background. I see what looks to be dozens, but I'm going to guess there are probably hundreds of books directly behind you. And I'm going to speculate many of them are on philosophy.
Yes, they are on my. I have an MA in law, which basically is legal theory, and my MA in politics is also in political philosophy. So it's and this here is the books that I studied for my MA in law. So it's and so this, and then the other ones I read in the US later on.
Okay.
But so it's this is my working library. Although now I'm a farmer, right? I don't.
Now you're. But you know what? Being somebody who's involved in agriculture, where you have you have a great deal of alone time, where you have a lot of time to reflect about things while you're working. It probably gives you opportunities beyond what a lot of people have, if their jobs are pulling them in a lot of different directions. Because quite frankly, the summer job that I'm a school teacher, but the summer job that I am working right now is at an enormous amusement park in the town where I live, and my job is not it's not taking a lot of creativity or thinking on my part. I'm going out and walking and sweeping up trash. That's what I wanted to do because it was going to allow me to get a lot of exercise. I have been working at trying to lose a significant amount of weight. In the last 22 months, I am down 65 kilos. So I've lost 65 kilos in the last almost 2 years. So
130 pounds.
143 now. 143 now. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, but it's 2.2.
Yeah. So I'm going out and walking, but it allows me to think about things. And I was actually, as I'm out walking yesterday, I'm formulating things that I wanted to try to discuss with you. And when I came home last night, I jotted some of them down on my computer, so I had them for us this morning. And but it's a good time to be able to just get out there and think. And if somebody with your background and your interests,
I have it's so the farm pays the bills, but I do write for a online magazine on politics and culture in Portuguese. So I have a weekly column every Monday that I need to write, and I will do it after this our conversation. And every month, so we have a monthly edition. I have two columns there in the weekly magazine, which is so one is on sports and culture. So I try to get the so every month there's a subject matter, a theme for the edition, and I try to see it through like a sports perspective. And another one, I usually write a conversation and a dialogue. So I put two characters to talk to each other on the theme of the month, because I think that and this is something that I always loved politics, and then when I went to the US, the perspective of the subject really opened my mind, because I was in a completely different environment that I was used to.
Right, absolutely.
But I realized one thing that in America that it's pretty much the same here, that people don't know how to talk to each other anymore. Right?
No,
There's
we don't.
I say that no, it's not dialogues, it's two monologues, right? So
Yes.
there are no communication at all. People, one is talking and the other one is not listening, and right.
This is exactly what
I thought, no, we need to relearn how to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So it's an exercise of people, right? We disagree, we don't agree in how we can communicate about the subject, right? People say one thing and the other understand another thing entirely. And how can we do that, right? So it's so I do that every month. It's an interesting exercise.
Well, this is something I talk with my students about, who are mostly 16, 17-year-olds. And what you just said is that, that we don't know how to listen to one another. I said that it's that when a conversation, if you want to call it that, takes place, that the person who is on the receiving end, they're not listening to understand. They're waiting for the other person to finish talking so they can make their next point without processing what that person has said. And to me, there's, with your background in politics and your interest in politics and such, I think the fact that far too many of us, whether they be the left, the right, the center, whatever the case may be, we tend to be two ships passing one another without actually recognizing what the other side is saying. And we don't do a great job of being able to actually communicate with one another. And a lot of it, I think, is these little devices, the phones and such, where we get to the point where we simply just tap out our responses. So I think having conversations like this are wonderful.
Yes, I'm not sure if the technology have something about that, because I think that this is something that has happened in history, like throughout history, many times. And I do believe that the Americans do better than most on this, which is kind of odd, because I know that the Americans have this same issue that we do. But throughout American history, also, there's when you think that it's amazing. The American political history is so fantastic. When you think that there's no way out, somehow you Americans manage to find a common ground, and then you start being deaf again. It's crazy, but every single time since before independence up to today, the only time that it didn't happen was during the Civil War. Any other time, at the breaking point, you managed to to get together and okay, let's understand each other, and then you now understand you, and then we stop and it start all over again. Right? It's really it's as fantastic as weird, especially for a foreigner, because If it happens in my country, would be in the civil war every single time, right? But no, you guys have, and I think that it was the amazing job of the founders that gave you the like the blueprint, right? And you go back to the blueprint every time there's we don't have a way anymore, or how we do. Then you go back to Philadelphia.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that is something that I would make the argument that there are a lot of us that don't necessarily do that. That we could still do a better job of that here. But we
absolutely.
We have kind of gone into little factions on the left and the right, and the left and the right have kind of continued to go further away from one another, while the center's kind of been left behind, and the center thinks that they're only the left and the right, and the center, if they actually looked at one another and went, we have a lot more in common than we realize, those folks that are at the far ends would probably have to realize we need to come back towards the center as well.
I know this is a footy podcast, but since we are in my area of expertise, I used to tell people that there is no center, right? When we talk about center, we're talking about this not a place,
right,
but a disposition, right? Politics is like a sporting context, right? You have two teams playing against each other, right?
Absolutely.
So you have Team A and Team B. That nowadays they are known as left and right? But they could be Yankees and Red Sox. It wouldn't change anything. And the point is, what the difference with what's the point? So we cannot have a game where people there. Maybe we can be since we are the guys that want to sit and talk. Why can we not compete against the guy that want to fight and kill each other? It doesn't happen. So you actually have two teams that are formed by people that want to sit and talk, and other players that want to kill the other team, right?
Yes.
And that's center actually is a disposition. It's a direction. So center, but so you need to be one of the teams, right? If you're in the center, you're out of the game.
Right.
You're saying that you're an spectator and you don't want to play.
Right.
So if you want to play, you gotta put a shirt of one of the teams that are playing. So you're gonna be either left or right. Now, what you do on the field, now it's different, right? Center is the guy that goes in the direction of the opposite team, right? Let's try and play more cooperatively this competition, right? So we're still competing, but you're gonna try to get a result that is better for both of us, right? You cannot win. I can't win either, right? You don't want me to win, and I don't want you to win. So let's make something that we are always playing, but nobody's winning, right? And there are the crazy guys that they want to end the game once and for all. Those are the extremists.
Yes.
So the opposite of center is far. So center right, the opposite of center right is far right or far left, right? And and so it's not that there's a center where you are. No, you're both right, you're both left, but one is going towards the opposition, and the other is moving away from the opposition. That's the difference. I can agree with the extremist in every single issue. That doesn't make me an extremist. The point is that I know that my opinion won't win. So I need to sit down with the other guy and make a compromise.
Right.
So that's what a centrist wants, right?
Which
to
brings
compromise.
Which brings us back around to the communication quite often, because again, when you're trying to when a compromise may be necessary, you've got those two people who are talking, who are still, like in many cases, like those two ships passing in the night that are only talking, only waiting till the other person stops talking so they can respond without comprehending what they're saying.
yeah, then you are behaving. You want to be a centrist, but you are behaving like an extremist, right? Because a centrist, you need to actually listen to the other and try to understand. One thing that, because of our lack of communication, right, the political sides, they created dialects. So they say one thing, and so they use different words to say similar things. Mm-hmm. And they don't know the other side dialect. They're not fluent, right? So they don't understand what the guy is saying, right?
Right.
The other guy is saying. So you need to sit down and say, okay, when you say this, what do you mean? And so we say that. I know, but that's bad. No, but it's bad only if the meaning is the one that you use. But I'm using in this sense, which is the other word that you're using there. Mm-hmm. So, and then you need, okay, so let's see it and here. And now I'm trying to understand, just because, I think that politics is a lot of the music, like you say potato and I say potato, right? You say tomato and I say tomato, and let's call the whole thing off. Right, it's really about politics, that song, right? Because it's so close, right? You're saying the same thing, but because you say it in one way and I say in another, let's call the whole thing off, right? That's the political spirit of the time.
I am impressed that you know that song, which I didn't realize had crept into South America for that analogy to be used. You say tomato. I mean, I know which song you're referencing there, but that's not one I thought you would. Maybe it's because you're a farmer. Which speaking, but speaking of that, what? You really give me some things to think about in terms of stuff I can incorporate into my, because I teach government classes, so it's definitely. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this much more closely and actually share this with my students as well. But back to your farming, what is it that you grow on your farm? What are you?
So basically, what do I have is the family has, right? So I'm the manager, right? My mom is almost 70, and she didn't want to take care of it anymore. So that's why I came from the United States to help her with that. And so we have a ranch, right? So we raise cattle.
Okay.
And but we rent part of the land there, so people can plant rice. I live in Brazil's rice belt.
Okay.
So basically, it's a rice plantation with cattle. But we don't do the rice part. We rent, so other people do.
Okay. So coming back to footy a little bit here, looking at Port Adelaide, you have to be very excited with what's going on at this point of the season. What, 11 wins in a row, if I'm not mistaken? 10 wins in a row. Yes, it's only going to be 10 because they play. I don't know who they play this week, but they play.
I don't like to talk about it.
Yes. Well, I'm just hoping that the Cats get some people healthy this week.
Yeah, it's your team gives me a bit of PTSD. Yeah. About it. Especially games that matter. So maybe I have hope for this the next game because it doesn't matter much. So you may win, but when it matters, it's like a coin flip that always falls in Geelong's side, right?
Yeah,
it's amazing. But yes, obviously, who's not excited is wrong. Even though I don't think that, and because of my tweets, that I don't trust the club leadership, including coaches and. Including the coaches, but there is something different this time, right? And maybe it's enough to break the barrier, right? It was the team was always good, but it wasn't never good enough, right? And it seemed that it lacked leadership, and not only out of the field, not only in the front office and the coaches and the coach box, but also on the field, right? And you see that when the team would, you'd say that it would enter into a standby mode. So everything is fine, and suddenly the team simply stops, and the opposition would run us over, and would say, well, and then the team would wake up again, and then, oh, okay, but now we're too far away to actually come back.
Right.
And it would happen, or during the season, right? You would stand by mode and like, well, plenty of rounds at a time, and then when the team started winning again, okay, now it's too late to qualify for finals. And even and when the games would matter, would qualify to the finals and then close games. And when it needed the leadership to step up, they would never do, and we would lose. So that's basically the past 10 years. But this time it seems different for some reason that I still don't know. I don't know if it's the kids that have stepped up and became a new leadership that you don't expect the kids to fill this role, right? Is the fact that we have at least one new assistant there that is taking care of our midfield, and the head coach is not in the box anymore. He's there on the field, closer to the players. So maybe there's a really good chance that at least in the game, right, the changes that need to be done, it's not being done by the head coach, but by the assistant coaches, and that's making a difference. But it is, and it started when we thought we had hit rock bottom, and we had plenty of shows to actually go even deeper, right? But suddenly we start winning and playing well and winning close games, and different players stepping up to give us the advantage. It's not only one player that would make magical plays like Robbie Gray that would do that for us, but now it's Connor Rosie, it's Zach Butters, it's Paulo Pepper, it's Charlie Dixon, this Todd Marshall, you name it, right? It's Horn Francis, such an 19 years old, right?
Yes. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I had said that, if somebody told me you get to start your club with 3 midfielders from one club in the comp, I would take Horn Francis, Rosie, and Butters in a heartbeat. I would take them before any other 3 midfielders. Before Collingwood, before Melbourne's group with Petrarca and Oliver. I would take the 3 in Port Adelaide. In fact, I would probably take the 3 at Gold Coast with Anderson, Rowell, and Tuke Miller before several of those others, just because of their youth as well.
It feels like there's maybe there's a dynasty there in the making, right? Yeah. If we can get the spirit right, because the problem Port Adelaide was never the quality on the field, but it was in spirit. Right, it was the emotional part of the game that would make us missing finals like half of the past 10 years. Right, and losing, and when getting into finals to lose the games in painful ways, right? We missed finals. We are the first team to miss finals after an 11-4 start. Right? That's what this team was. So we are in 11-2 territory, and we're all scared because we're getting there, right? close to the 11-4 mark, but it feels that it seems that these guys they really want to win, and they believe that they know how to do it, and that they are not afraid of anyone. Although in the first three rounds, right, the loss to Collingwood and the loss in the showdown were absolutely like awful.
Yes.
It was the Port Adelaide, right? This is Collingwood at the G, right? A lot of stakes in the game, so obviously Port didn't get into the game at all, and we got ran over. Showdown, PBs, Russell Ebert celebration there again. The Westlakes just ran us over, and then Warren Treadway came up publicly and said, "Right, Hinckley, this is absolutely unacceptable. Your position is untenable," but it seems that finally there's a speech that has been common since I have been following Footy, which was since 2017, so nothing new there. But finally, it actually echoed inside the club, and there were changes. And things just started to work. But
so do you think Ken Hinckley is back with Port Adelaide next year, because he does not have a contract? So he might find himself in a position where if there's any job that is open, he could choose to move there if they wanted him. Do you think he's back with Port Adelaide next year?
It's his choice, right? It's his choice. It has been his choice since he arrived in 2013. His first 2 seasons guaranteed him a contract for life, right?
Okay.
That's the truth. That's how it works, right? This is how it works. So it's not my opinion. It's not anything. You may want him to stay. You may want him gone. I'm just stating this, right? The club has decided that Ken Hinckley will stay as Port Adelaide's head coach as much as he likes. Okay? So by the end of the year, Port winning, Port losing, Ken Hinckley will, if he says, I want to stay, he will stay, right? Maybe there will be a discussion if 1 year, 2 years, right? Or something like that. But the club won't say no. And if he says, okay, guys, I'm here 11 years. I finally got the title. And I think that this is the best time for me to leave. Or, guys, I lost again. I tried 11 years and I failed. I cannot do this anymore. Right? Same thing. And then he decides, I want to leave, then he will leave. But the decision as Hinckley's alone. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah. So have you had the opportunity yet to travel to Australia to watch a game in person?
Never. That's one of the things that are in my bucket list.
Okay.
And I have no idea when it's going to be possible, but I would love to go there and do all this. I'm a sport nerd. I have always been. Although I don't have any talent to play, I love sports, right? And I follow American sports. I follow Australian football. I used to follow baseball, but I don't anymore because I lost my team. I'm still a Cleveland Indians fan. Cleveland Indians don't exist anymore, so I simply follow the league like now as a casual observer.
Yes.
And when I went to my honeymoon, right? I would make an excuse to visit the city stadium, every city that we went,
Hmm.
to my wife's despair. But I made it. I tried to make it as most romantic possible. But that's kind of things that I like. So I would love to go to Australia and go to Perth and watch a game and up the stadium,
Yeah.
and obviously go to Adelaide and watch a game in Alberton and Adelaide Oval, and going to Melbourne, of course, and Sydney and stuff, and do the whole thing, and do something like trying to know Australia, but including right Footy in this like sociological exercise there, touristic sociological exercise. Maybe someday.
Now, is your wife, is she Brazilian or is she American?
Yeah, no, she's Brazilian.
Okay. Okay. So were you married when you were in DC?
Yes,
Okay.
and with 2 kids. Crazy. It was
Wow.
absolutely insane. Yes.
Wow. So that, because DC is, if I'm not mistaken, is an extraordinarily expensive city to live in. So if you're going there as a student, that had to be tough.
Yes, that's why I was in Maryland, which is
Okay.
a bit cheaper. I was in Rockville,
Okay.
Maryland, in Montgomery County. Great place to live. Very kids friendly. Great schools, and plenty of. It's a hospital hub as well. So we really enjoyed our time there.
Okay.
Maryland is such a lovely state. I came back as a Marylander.
There you go.
I love
There you
it.
go. So before we close things out here, I had a couple footy things that I wanted to get into, and then a couple of other just things a little bit about you as well. But if you could change or add a rule in footy, what was it, or would it be that you would do? If you could make some sort of an adjustment to the game, what would you do?
Uh, okay, I have a couple of rules, but one thing that I would do is first and foremost, again, never stop changing the rule straight in the main league, right? There should be a testing period using like youth leagues, state leagues. You go up, right? If it works in youth leagues, then you start a test one another a couple of years in state leagues, and then okay, it's working, and
Okay.
then you apply to the AFL, right? So it doesn't matter what rule you want to change, right?
Hmm.
You're gonna put it to test, and then you put it, because the way the AFL does that, they change rules at whim, and then they cancel the change they do, and then it it's bad for the players, it's bad for the spectator, it's bad for the umpires, it's bad for everybody. So you don't know the effect. You have an idea. You think that if you do this, it will happen that,
Right.
but
Right.
you are not sure if it's going to happen. So test it first. If it works like intended or better, right? Because it can work better. Uh, then you go and 3 years later, no, now it's ready to go to the NFL, right? So would be the main change. But having said that, I would do one thing that I'm really interested that I would love to see was reducing interchange to 18 per quarter. So it's now in 75, so it's really close to what I
Wow.
wanted to see. But instead of 75 for the whole game, 18 each quarter, right? So you don't save to other quarters or the end of the game. So you have 18. And I would increase the bench to 6 players and get rid of the sub. So
Okay.
6 players on the bench, 18 interchange per quarter. That would give the coaches plenty to work.
Okay.
And that would be really interesting to see how they would adjust to
That
this
would be
change.
interesting.
So
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure West Coast would be able to play a game then right now. They've got. I don't know if they could put that many people out there on their bench. at this moment in time, as beat up as they are.
So yes, up to 6. Yeah,
Yes, there you
that's
go. There you go.
this way. Okay.
That 18 a quarter, that is a unique. I've never had anybody mention that before because I know it had been over 100 and now it's down to 75
It was
now, I think.
120 and
Yeah.
then 90 and now 75.
Yeah.
And I think that the game demands that everything is multiple of 6. Right? Because you have 18 players on each side. The goal is worth 6 points. You have the 6-6-6 rule, and so
I love that idea.
Why not 18 then? Because you go to 72, right? And then you have 6 players on the bench because again, it's the multiple of.
I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. So if that would and this is something that I guess I've never really explored, but it seems like every time, if it's not Charlie Dixon or if it's not Tom Hawkins or Jeremy Cameron or something like that kicking a goal, usually whoever else it is that kicks a goal ends up leaving the ground after they kick a goal. Why? That's never made much sense to me. Keep them out there. Maybe they'll kick another one.
Brazilians and Americans have this same. We have a saying like a team that is winning, you don't change, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a natural Brazilian saying. If it's say if ain't broken, don't fix it. Right.
Right.
In English, something like that. But so we have the guy's hot. Leave him there. Right. And no, so you scored fantastic. Come celebrate on the bench, right? It's such a
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. So when you're watching games, are your children interested in the game at all, or are you watching the games by yourself like I do? Because I've never had anybody watch a game with me at my house before.
It's really hard. Because of the time. But sometimes the kids come and now that the games you can actually watch on TV because the games are on Star Plus here in Brazil. Disney second streaming.
Okay.
So I can have and I can put the games on the TV, right? But the kids, if the game is in the morning, they wake up and then they come. They may lay down on the couch with me, but they don't pay much that attention. But there was there was this video that a few times ago, a few years ago, that by a Port supporter that made so they made a joke that we would lose to West Coast in the last kick of the game, right? So he put and he would put those kicks. He made a video. It's on YouTube. He would put those kicks in both a split screen, right?
Right.
And playing that Titanic song in a bad recorder.
Right. Okay.
Song, right? And then I showed to my kids, right? Because it was so funny and so sad at the same time. And there was so once I was watching a game and the kids, it was a showdown, and the kids arrived at the living room and asked how the game is going, Dad. And I said, not good. We are losing, and it was about to end. And they started to sing the Titanic bad recorders. They started making fun of me, mad at the living room, right? But when Port win, they come and hug me and celebrate and stuff. But there you
go. Yeah, I've not been able to convince my wife to watch at all. But so before we wrap up here, I always like to ask a couple questions that are not necessarily footy related, and we certainly got onto a couple different tangents with that today, which I love because while I love talking footy, I love getting into other avenues of things, and you certainly did that today. But I have two questions for you before we finish up. What is it that inspires you?
What that inspires me,
Yeah, what is
I I don't know. What can I tell you is that it's inspiration happens to me like a mediumistic experience, like the muses come and it's kind of weird. I don't know, and suddenly I'm really inspired and moving, and everything
Mhm.
goes fantastically, or it simply never happens, and I can't write. It's hard to work on the farm, so it's kind of. I really don't know what inspires me. It's something
So
that it seems that I don't know how to turn it on and off the switch.
so it's
It
kind of
it simply
Miles
it simply
Menos.
happens, right? It's weird. And I had a professor in college that said maybe if that's how it works for you, and it makes a lot of sense that it's how it works because we see you working, right?
Uh-huh.
That maybe academia is not for you, right? You should be you look more an artist, right? You should be trying to do art and stuff. And funny that I'm here. I'm still studying. I'm writing about politics and stuff,
Mhm.
but not academia material, but something that it comes by it's more like in inspiring stuff, right? So that's
Okay.
interesting how thing went right after that.
Okay. Now, the last thing that I have for you, and I've asked this one with several other people, and this gets asked in a lot of other um, podcasts as well. But if you were going to be having a dinner party and you invited three or four people to this dinner party, from whoever they may be, whether somebody in history, somebody in the present day, that sort of thing, who are you going to invite to this dinner party?
Oh, that's so another point from me is that it's you know usually people start studying and they go deeper and deeper in a narrow, and the field goes narrower and narrower, right?
Hmm.
And but I have a more a broad knowledge stuff. My curiosity is gigantic, right? And so I like to learn a bit of everything. So I would probably invite four people from four different backgrounds and try to learn everything from them. Yeah, but having said that, let's see. Um, Plato would be probably one of I really love philosophy, and um, maybe someone from the time of the Brazilian independence, like one of our founding fathers, José Bonifacio, probably. To know what how they thought Brazil, and
Hmm.
because independence, like in America, right? You need to think who we are, and I think that's a question that Brazilians don't do often. It's something that I learned with the Americans. You were always asking the question, well, who we are, what the
Right,
United
right.
States are, and stuff. And I think, okay, this is the way, right? We need to answer the question of who we are before we decide what we want to be, right?
Hmm.
It's obvious, and I said, yeah, because imagine I'm short, I'm old, and I'm clumsy. And I think that my happiness is I won't be happy unless I became a pro center in basketball in an NBA team. Right? Imagine that I have the resources and time to go practice. Even that, I will never be that.
Right, right. That
So
makes a
I'm
lot of sense.
condemn myself to be miserable, right? But first of all, I need to learn who am I, what are my qualities, what are my shortcomings, and then from that try to figure out what is the best version of myself. right? I cannot simply come from take from the and it works for in individual level, and it works for society as well. So I would try to get this guy to see what kind of image
we're gonna go back to. We're going to go back to another old song. Since you were singing tomatoes and tomatoes, we're going to go to the one that had the line that said you have to accentuate the positives, eliminate the negatives. So if you're going to be a short NBA center, you have to promote. You have to do what's the line? Stay in your lane, if you will. Find something you're successful at that you can be successful at, and be the best at that.
Yes, put yourself in a position that your qualities can thrive, right? And that's but you need to know what they are, right? Before that, so it's kind of so that would probably be that.
Okay.
Two more.
Well, you don't have to have two. You can have one or two more. That's fine.
Yeah, but you see, it would be around that, maybe around sports, someone. But it's kind of this kind of a. It need to be people that like to talk, and you can see that I love this. I could do this forever. We're having this conversation. I could go for hours, in a mood that making question and answer, and maybe like to drink, like in a very free environment, right? In a comfortable that you can be yourself, right? That's so that you say whatever you want, ask whatever you want, be trying to find the truth, and then the subject matter would appear during the conversation, right?
There you go. You wouldn't have anything that is predispositioned. It would come naturally to the conversation then, or come organically, if you will. Yeah. Well, that's not a bad answer. I like that. That's so if people and I'll ask you to send me a link to the website that you write for, because I'm gonna guess that once you go there, you can probably have it translated to English. So usually the websites will translate from from one language to another. So I mean, I definitely want to check that out.
Williams, I would add there. So sorry to interrupt, but I need to say that. So I would add a third guy, Foz Williams, just to know everything about Port, the guy who wrote the creed. He is the Abraham Lincoln of Port Adelaide, right? The refounder of the club, right? The club is Port Adelaide. But again, what is Port Adelaide? We want to win. We want we exist. If we exist to win premierships, right? What does it mean? And then how to apply that to the football club? But again, same thing that I said before to the country, to Brazil, then to Port Adelaide. That would be so three. So I give you three guys.
There we go. There we go. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming on today. This has been a wonderful discussion, and I know we went down a lot of different avenues, and I know you absolutely love this club, and I wish them the best of luck in every round except for 2 rounds the rest of the year. Because I know they still play they play the Cats this Thursday, and I do not have to work that morning, so I will be up to watch that one. But it's I'm a fan of watching your club play, because this year especially they're playing phenomenal footy, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. If people want to give you a follow on Twitter, where can they do that? And I will put the links in there, but if you want to tell them now, you could go ahead and do that as well.
So Twitter, it's at Grêmio Power, right? Grêmio is Gremio. It means guild in Portuguese. It's my soccer. It's the soccer club that I follow since I was a kid. So and it's my account to follow sports. if you want to know more about politics, then it's my name, but the last name first. So it's at Sanchotene Paulo, and then I'm also in Instagram at PR Sancho.
Okay.
So that's where you could you can find me.
And I'll put all of those links in the show notes if you want to give him a follow. And again, especially if you're a Port Adelaide supporter, you're definitely going to want to give him a follow. And I guess even if you are a Crows supporter, you may want to give him a follow on the off chance, that the Crows win the next showdown game. You can give him a little bit of a hard time about that.
I love banter. I really do.
There you go.
And I love Schadenfreude is a beautiful feeling. Yes. Right. And if you want to enjoy that through me, you can do it if you're free. But know that if what comes goes back, right?
There you go.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been Paulo Sanchotene. And I want to thank you, Paulo, for coming on this morning. This has been a wonderful discussion, and I'll even put a link to your community's website up on the the city's website up on my show notes as well. If people want to check out where you are located, because you are not exactly in the hotbed of Australian football, but you're doing your part to grow the game there. I mean, it's the same with me here in Ohio. And it's funny you mentioned being a Cleveland Indians fan, because I live about an hour west of Cleveland, so I've grown up as a Cleveland fan, but I've not watched baseball now in over 3 years because I'm very frustrated with the way that the game is being operated these days. They're trying to turn it into a game that is timed rather than this bucolic untimed game, and I'm really not happy with what they're doing. So I'm so thankful that I've discovered footy. So thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, I still love baseball. I have including I have an article that I wrote when I was there in the United States. I can send you the link later on, in defense of the human empires, because people want to put make a electronic empire to call balls and strikes, and I think that this is the death of baseball. And I explain why in the article, and it has a lot to do with my background in law and philosophy, but it's kind of interesting. Then I can send to you after that.
I would love to read that.
Again, people that want to get in touch with me, again, feel free to send me messages and stuff. I will answer them as better as I can, but please, I just go there and shoot any question that you may have. I don't mind it at all.
Terrific. Well, sir, I hope you have a fantastic Monday afternoon. And
you too.
All right, Paulo, thanks so very much for sitting down to chat with me. I know how stoked you are about how well Port Adelaide are playing at the moment. I'm not sure what you're going to do this weekend with the bye. Ladies and gentlemen, remember you can find everything related to my podcast over at my website at yankonthefooty.com. You can get on the mailing list there, which I hope you'll do. If you enjoy the show, I hope you'll consider leaving me a review. You can do that either on the website or over on Apple Podcasts or Google. There are links to do that in both places. If you want to help out the podcast, you can click on that Buy Me a Coffee button. You can leave me a voicemail there as well. I do have my store page there as well. A couple new stickers that are available. I have them in my cart. I've not made the purchase yet, but I'm going to be doing that soon. And if you got an idea for a great guest, please feel free to drop me a note. Again, you can do that on the website, or you can do that via email at yankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at @yank_on, or you can search out my name, Craig Wessels, on LinkedIn or on Facebook, or Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook, or a Yank on the Footy on Instagram. Now, ladies and gentlemen, look out for one another. Check up on your friends. If you need to talk to somebody, please reach out and talk to somebody. Let them know that you need to discuss some things with them, because we don't need to be fighting our battles alone, and we all are dealing with things that no one else has any idea about, and if we don't tell anyone, how are we going to be able to resolve these issues? Folks, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's going to be a great weekend of footy. It's the last weekend of the byes. I, for one, am excited about the Cats playing again this week. They need to get up off the canvas. They're going to have their ruck back this week, it sounds like. Reece Stanley will be back in at ruck. They desperately need him. Yes, I know he's only one man going up against Grundy, but we shall see what happens. And since I'm going to be doing my tips episode tomorrow morning, I have to go with my heart. At home, I'm going to go with the Cats by 7 points in this game, although I'm not going to be surprised if Melbourne wins. I know that the Cats are going to be without Paddy Dangerfield. The D's are going to be without Clayton Oliver again. But I'm hoping that on the home deck, it works out for them. But folks, I appreciate the kind words. I do hope you'll share the podcast with your friends and family. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. This has been episode 271 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget that you can reach me at Yank_on Twitter or to yankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. Just look for A Yank on the Footy or Yank on the Footy podcast. Or you can find everything at my website at yankonthefooty.com. I hope you'll share the episode with your friends and family. And if you enjoy it, please do share. That would be a huge, huge help. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.